Everyone, good afternoon. Delegate Washington here, and this begins our subcommittee meeting on the education subcommittee for the Ways and Means Committee. Thanks everyone for watching and thanks for being here. I see our advocates are on. I'm asking all our advocates to turn their videos off, and if there's any and mute yourselves, and if there's any questions that we might have of you, we'll ask the advocates to chime in if there's any questions. For the committee, we do have a full agenda today of about 5 different bills, 2 of which we're going to move, and the other 3 we're going to discuss. We're going to take up the first bill that we sent back to the committee, HB 465. It had a sponsor problem and then an amendment problem. So I wanted to see if we can keep the sponsor problem, but get rid of the amendment problem. So let's, with the amendment that we agreed to on this bill, I think what we have in the bill as is works, and that's changing the when a person on the school board can be on the state school board could be appointed to be chair. They have to wait a year. It takes it back to that year instead of the terms that we had within here. So that would have took multiple years for them to not be appointed in. So we do want to make it a democratic process. We do want to make sure there's space to remove them, for them not to be on the board. But I think as is it will work. Any questions on what we're doing?
Yeah, I had one question.
Sure.
So what is the process now? And if the bill takes effect, what would it change to?
Okay, Alice, you want to take that?
Yeah, so the process now is that there is not a advice and consent process for the governor's appointment of the state superintendent. So this is putting it on equal footing with the other cabinet member positions. Additionally, in order to make sure that there's not conflict of interest between the state superintendent, who's really under the auspices of the State Board of Education, they cannot be a current member of the State Board of Education under this bill, and they cannot have just immediately preceding year have been a member of the State Board. Otherwise, current law is left as it is.
Sorry.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Delegate Holmberger? No, that's it. All right, Delegate Guyton.
Hi, Mr. Chair, thank you so much. Just for a point of clarification about that, the current State Board of Education members who are all appointed by the governor are actually the ones who choose superintendent candidate to go to the governor. So it would be the person sitting in the meetings during the appointment process who might be eligible to actually be chosen. So that's a definite problem. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we need to take a motion to remove this amendment? Oh, I'm sorry. Delegate Ebersol, thanks.
Yeah, I just don't have the, thank you, Doug. Where you're pointing is not where I am on your screen, but thanks.
It is where I am on my screen, actually. It is where you are.
I just want to understand the amendment. I know we got a year. I don't quite have a feel. I think I'm going to approve. People are going to ask me. I want to know what the business about the predecessor. I don't quite get it. If you could just clarify that in 30 seconds or so for me, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, go ahead.
So the thinking was that the amendment was too harsh. It was too long of a waiting period. So we're actually removing the amendment. So we're just doing the bill as originally drafted.
So now it's just a year automatically and that's it. Okay.
That's great.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay. Do we need to move to remove that amendment? Let me just do that. Let me just make a motion to remove the amendment that we approved. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to remove the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Seeing none, on the bill as amended, Delegate Ebersol.
I move the bill as amended. I was raising my hand to vote before, but that's fine.
You moved the bill as unamended, right?
As amended with no amendment, right?
Correct. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
So properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed.
Aye. Yep.
Okay. Delegate Holmberger opposes. Okay. Great. Thanks, everybody. Okay, we're going to move on to House Bill 205, which is a delegate residence bill that we moved out the committee last year or last session. Alistair, you want to tell us what this bill does?
Yes, absolutely. So this bill is in the same posture as it left our committee and the House last year. This bill would require that in each public middle school or high school, there be installed in at least 2 restrooms on or before October 1 of this year, menstrual hygiene product dispensers, and on or before August 1 of 2025, in all women's rooms in public middle or high schools, and in at least 1 men's room if the restrooms are divided by gender, and in at least 1 restroom in a public elementary school. And that is it.
Okay, any questions? Delegate Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. Just quickly, I just want to make sure that I have this right. You said in elementary school, 1 bathroom. You did not specify, as you did with others, who gets to, how that's chosen. Which bathroom is it in? How do we? You had said before,
That's
like
right.
1 men, 1's women's, but then when you got down to elementary, you hadn't mentioned.
That's true. It would be at the discretion of the local school which bathroom it would be installed in.
And
So
it's not, we don't have a, it's not defined by men or women's or both.
not in the context of this bill.
Okay.
That could be a proposed amendment if you'd like to clarify.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right. Any other questions on this bill? It's seeing none. Do I hear a motion on this bill?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that Haven Shoemaker be the floor leader on this bill, please.
Second.
We don't need another male on this bill. All right?
I think it was his last year.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would like to.
I move favorable on this bill.
There we go. All right. Nice. Any seconds? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
Nay.
It's been moved to the Ways and Means Committee. Thank you, everybody. That bill passes. Okay, guys, we're gonna discuss the next few bills for consideration. I want to start with just out of respect because she's our subcommittee mate. We're going to start with Delegate Guyton's bill on public schools and pregnant and parenting students. Alistair, you want to tell us about this bill, and then Delegate Guyton, you want to share anything afterwards?
Yes, I'll give it my best shot, Mr. Chair. So this bill requires that the State Department of Education develop a model policy to support the education of parenting and pregnant students. The policy must include a location for lactating. It also must take into account childcare needs for these parents. And then each county board is going to be required to establish a policy based on the model policy that the department establishes. And hopefully that gets everything. Delegate Guyton is there. Am I missing anything?
Delegate Guyton, you want to add anything?
Thank you. No, I would just clarify that I know Alistair said it takes into account their needs for childcare, also transportation, but the schools are not required to provide those things. They are required to aid and assist in trying to find appropriate, safe childcare and transportation if those issues are keeping the parenting student out of school.
Okay. Any questions about this bill? Any discussion about the bill?
May I say one more thing, Mr. Chair?
Sure, absolutely.
Because I am being inundated by, I spent all morning trying to write responses to some of the emails that you're also probably all getting from Right to Life people, saying that this bill actually is trying to bring abortion into school and take away parental rights. I have to definitively tell you that that is not in the bill. There is no language to that effect in this bill. So thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yeah, Delegate Pelagovich-Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really like this bill. I think it's well crafted and would definitely support us moving forward on it if that was the the will of this subcommittee.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I was talking to an advocate not too long ago about collecting data on parenting on pregnant students, especially, well, this was on students in college, and how they have the dropout rate for students. I know this is completely opposite, but it's like the dropout rate for students who are pregnant and who go to college and just drop out for it, and there's no tracking for it at all, and we just don't keep the data on it at all, and I think that's something that we should look into as well.
Sure.
Moving forward. Go ahead,
If you
Delegate.
don't mind, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just to remind this subcommittee that I do have two other companion bills. One is, and they're both doing exactly that. So the Maryland Innovation Institute studying this, and the other through Maryland Longitudinal Data Service. Just
Awesome.
keep in mind.
Okay, cool, great. And just so everybody knows, from time to time, I'm going to bring out bills for us to discuss and have a discussion just as we start to go down as we start to like bring more bills out. We and help guide us in adding amendments if necessary or moving as is, to have larger discussions on these bills. So let's, is there any other questions on Delegate Guyton's bill? Cool. Okay, let's go to Delegate Wilson. I guess we're gonna take Delegate Wilson and Delegate Acevedo's bills together. Both bills are kind of similar in how they're presented. Alistair, you want to talk about Delegate Wilson's bill and then Delegate Acevedo's bill? And I'd like to see anybody's thoughts on these bills.
Absolutely. So Delegate Wilson's bill is HB 11, and it would require that the State Department of Education, the State Board of Education adopt content standards to include African American history as part of the state standards and frameworks in social studies, and particularly specifies that particular incidents in the history of African Americans would be included in that, including slavery and abolition, the Jim Crow era, the 1981 Tulsa race massacre, and instances of injustice and police brutality in the modern era. Then each county board would develop and implement an age-appropriate curriculum based on those standards and begin teaching in the 2022-2023 school year. That is Delegate Wilson's bill. Should I move on to Delegate Acevedo's bill?
Sure, yeah, and we can take them both together yeah.
So Delegate Acevedo's bill has a similar aim, but it is a little broader. It is HB 140 for those following at home. This bill would, rather than dictating strict curricular standards, it would set up a commission to make recommendations to the state board on expanding curriculum standards. And it would look at how the state is teaching about various underrepresented groups that have not been received necessarily the full and proper incorporation into the history of the state and our kids' curriculum. And those recommendations would be made to the state board, who would then look at the recommendations and consider which parts of them to adopt and how to make age-appropriate changes in updating the curriculum. And this would be across multiple subjects, not just social studies. So hopefully I didn't butcher anything there, Mr. Chair.
No, that sounds great. That sounds great. Hey, before we go there, can I ask any questions from the advocates who are here on House Bill, on Delegate Guyton's bill, House Bill 401, if anybody had any, because I didn't ask you guys and I wanted to on Delegate Guyton's bill. Deanna, you wanted to say something really quick?
No, everything's good.
Oh, okay. Well then,
I appreciate it.
well, you can turn your video back off if no one has anything to say about House Bill 401 in the gallery. It's all good. Okay, well then, any questions or any thoughts on Delegate Wilson and Delegate Acevedo's bill? Delegate Ebersol?
Yeah, so I'm looking at Delegate Wilson's bill, and there's a list of topics that we require to be included, and they're good ones. I see them there. They're ones I didn't learn about. I can tell you that much. But I'm wondering it says additional topics, but I think if we're going to require some, who else has vetted this? I mean, Delegate Wilson's certainly a very good source, but I don't know if there's maybe some things that were left out. And if we leave it to this frequently, this becomes the exhaustive list then. And so I don't know if we need to, I'm not really sure. Maybe we need to talk to some of the advocates and say, you know, are there some topics that are even a little bit, that are still significant, but are a little bit more off the radar that we need to require? Or, you know, maybe, because I, as I say, I worry this list will become exhaustive. So it's more of a comment in that case.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that too. I think that we can't list every single aspect, right?
That's right.
And then we get into the curriculum world. And so that's why, I appreciate the other bill, which is like talking about holistically providing advice to the school board or the state school board about, you know, some of the, about what they can pick up on, and then allowing the state board to develop that curriculum themselves.
And
I wonder if
that's why I think also, because there's a sort of a false, not a false equivalence, but sort of there's a word for it when you write something and you don't match things well. Some are about particular events and others are about larger topics. Like you compare the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, which is an event, and then you look, the next one that I see is social justice and police brutality, which is a larger topic and also probably might be perceived as a little more political in some ways. So I want the bill to survive too. So I agree with you. I think having a group of experts on it might be better.
Yeah, Delegate Hartman, and then I'm gonna ask Ms. Dove to hop in, and then I'll come to you, Delegate. Well, I'll go to Delegate Holmberg and then Ms. Dove, if you don't mind. Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And House Bill 11 and 140, would that apply to private education as well, or is that just a public school curriculum?
That's a good question. Delegate, I keep wanting Alice there.
Thank you for the promotion, Mr. Chair.
I don't know if it's a promotion, bro.
Okay, thank you for the change of job, I guess. I believe it would just apply to the state's public schools, Delegate.
Okay, thank you.
Parallel structure, that's the word I was looking for. Sorry.
Got it. Okay. I appreciate your informed perspective, Alice there. Delegate Hartman. Oh, Delegate Hartman, you already went. Delegate Holmberger.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think Lukey had a bill similar to this last year that dealt with sort of civics issues in general that we might have passed. Does anybody remember the particulars on that?
What bill was that, Delegate Holmberger?
Lukey had a bill, it was either last year or the year before, that dealt with civics. And it was kind of similar.
So there was a bill that would require as part of the, I can't speak necessarily to before my time here or even my time here necessarily that well, but there was a bill last year that is, again, before our committee, we haven't had a hearing yet on it, that would require as part of the high school graduation requirement that students take the civics exam that is given to people who are naturalizing to the country, right, and that they pass a particular qualifying score in order to graduate.
Oh, okay, I don't know about all that, but I guess where I'm going is the Wilson bill seems to be very prescriptive, whereas the Acevedo bill, I think there's a way to take the Wilson bill and put it into the Acevedo bill. In other words, merge them that way, but I don't think you can go the other way. I like the civics part of it, and if you want to put language in there to deal with, Reconstruction or any, political events that dealt specifically with African Americans, I think that would be a better way to combine maybe the two bills.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Let me ask Ms. Dove. Ms. Dove, did you want to answer any of the questions or maybe some of the comments that have been made?
Yes. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So first and foremost, the Acevedo bill basically is modeled similarly to something that happened in Virginia, where they created a commission to study sort of the standards of learning throughout the state and sort of figure out where the holes existed as it related to African American history and to make recommendations for how to plug those holes. So it wasn't specific to specific topic areas within social studies, but sort of a look across the curriculum and to add appropriately standards that sort of spoke to some of those things. They didn't necessarily dictate curriculum, if I remember correctly. They just sort of said, here are the standards, and sort of laid out a program of study. And that commission included sort of, people that are specialists in the topic, so historians and others, current educators, et cetera. So MSEA, as you know, based on the testimony that I provided, we support the effort to create a commission to kind of look at not just African-American history, but basically like do a landscape study of what's missing from a lot of the different affinity groups that are not currently included in history, and to talk about sort of the standards of learning versus the specific things that are being taught and how. So to Delegate Hornberger's point, would the Wilson bill fit into that? Yes. I'm all but positive that a commission would very easily realize that things related to the Reconstruction and the post-Reconstruction era are not necessarily included in the current standards of study in the state, and would likely then bring in a whole bunch of the things that Delegate Wilson is discussing, and would be a little more inclusive and a little more sort of, to Delegate Ebersol's point, creating sort of some more parallel structure without having the dictates of this specific curriculum has to be taught, et cetera. So, we believe that having a commission to study it and a commission of experts to study it is better than having folks that are not educators or people that are not historians and not specialists to do that work. And Delegate Wilson's bill would sort of leave it to the State Board of Education, none of whom, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 people, are actual educators. And I don't know if any of those educators are actually specialists in social studies, et cetera. So
thank you.
If we had our druthers, A. Severo, that bill is a much better bill.
Thank you, Ms. Dove. Appreciate it. Delegate Kolagwich-Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as a relatively new member of the subcommittee, I'm hoping that maybe somebody can square something for me that Majority Leader Lukey often has said to the full committee about that we don't dictate curriculum as a legislative body. So I guess I'm trying to figure out with the first bill, is that in keeping with that spirit, or, am I misremembering in terms of what's been said prior?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, there's been exceptions on the body moving curriculum. We did it last year with one of our bills that many of us voted for. Some didn't, but it's a non-written rule, but it's definitely one that I would like to uphold in this committee. But I definitely, see this as one where we could find the best medium to make sure that we do the right thing to move the needle on this issue. Any follow-ups, Delegate Kolagwich-Carr? No, okay. Delegate Ebersol.
Just answering that, yes, and you're right, we've done it for sexual predators and, sex education, teaching kids about stuff. We put specific things in. This bill doesn't look as specific, it's curriculum standards. And by the way, State Department of Education deals with curriculum standards all over the place from all, there's the math curriculum standards, that come from the, oh man, words getting away from me, that come. And so these look more like not specific things that must be taught, but content standards that you would expect to be covered. So I think this is a little gentler than what Delegate Lukey's talking about, where we say, you have to test on this, you have to teach this and test on it. So
that's good to know. Thank you. Very helpful.
And we'll see many other bills later on that that actually have a lot more curriculum based in them that we'll see in the hearings. And particularly probably today. Any other questions on these bills? We have 2 more minutes. Seeing none. Okay, thank you all very much, and we'll meet again next week at this time, probably a little earlier. Early childhood education.
We'll stay out of your way.